Welcome friends and family, my name is Skylent, and today we are going to be talking about the top 10 CCG for 2016. Now, my criteria for this list is going to be games that have deck building features, or generally you're going to collect cards, and it is a video game that you can play online. It can be mobile, PC, what have you, on consoles, I don't know. Any CCG that is open and freely available right now can make the list. Now, I played lots of games, even games that are like Kickstarters, or they're in like prototype phases, or they're so far in the distance. Yeah, those are cool and everything, but those aren't making the list, okay? The games on this list you can play right now, and I think that's going to be really fun. You should honestly try all these games out if you haven't already. They're worth just a little bit of your time, and I think you'll have an experience to take with you and make some memories, yeah. But absolutely, guys, if you haven't played any CCG, check out this list. You're in for a treat. This past year, we have been privileged to such innovative ideas in the CCG market. Of course, lots of clones as well, but some of them are actually high quality regardless. The list is listed based on popularity, but the games that I picked themselves are all games that I've played and I can vouch for. Get hype, keep it alive. Let's get into the list. So starting out the list, we have a game called Infinity Wars. And when I first played this a while ago, I thought it was genuinely very, very interesting. In a time where there's so many CCG coming out and copying each other and different mechanics and slightly tweaking formulas, I thought it was really cool the gimmick that Infinity Wars had, and that's simultaneous turns. So both players make decisions, they're thinking their strategies and, the tactics, and then boom, it all gets resolved. The conflict and the climax, it all happens simultaneously. Now, it's not into the same style as Gwent, so Gwent is still its own unique thing, but Infinity Wars has proper phases, it's got proper turns, it's just, instead of taking the turns, they just happen together at the same time. It was also one of the first games that I played that actually had different sides of a board, so there's like a defensive side and a sieging side, and I don't know, there's some other weird mechanics that I think was really interesting inside of Infinity Wars with the intricacies of the different cards. Of course, all these games generally do, but all that combined with its, very grand gimmicks, as well as just the overall polish. I just really appreciated this game, and I kind of wish more people did as well. Next up, we have Magic Duels. Now, I've heard from a lot of people who are really hardcore into the physical card game that Magic Duels isn't everything that they want in a Magic card game. I think for those people, there are a plethora of other paid card games that you can purchase, but for what Magic Duels is, I think it's really great for the returning Magic player and for somebody who is brand new to the series, especially because they have a really awesome PvE mode. There's like a campaign, and you get to really get involved inside the actual stories of Magic, and if you ever played or just held or looked at a Magic card, you know that the flavor text is almost about half the collectability of the card, other than, its actual use in the card game itself. No, Magic is a very wide and deep world, or, well, worlds, or like universes. Like, I don't know, it's kind of complicated. Either way, there's a whole lot to the game, and it's really cool that this game allows new players to dive into that world, not just mechanically, but also aesthetically, and with the story. Anyways, that's why I personally appreciate the game, but of course there is, the whole online interaction, head-to-head, actual Magic the Gathering game, if you're into that. Now, my number 8 game is going to be Elder Scrolls Legends. This is technically an open beta as of rendering this video, and it's pretty close to Hearthstone. I think there are a lot of minute changes to some of the effects and some cards, but there's a huge amount of parallels with Hearthstone. I think a lot of people are actually wanting a Hearthstone competitor, though, and Elder Scrolls Legends does have a really cool mechanic with a by-lane system. So there are 2 lanes on each side, and depending on which side a creature is on, they can only attack that side, or I'm sure there's different abilities that maybe could even attack all across the board, and I don't know, either way, it just adds a single small element to a game that is actually seemingly very familiar, but in such a deep system as pretty much any deck building game or card game. Yeah, those small changes can make a big difference, and I can say from me playing, yeah, absolutely. At first glance, it definitely seems familiar, but the small changes do add up. And of course, you've got, well, that's the Elder Scrolls stylings and, aesthetics, so it definitely gets some points for that too. Next up on the list, we have a game called Shadowverse, and I think a lot of people have already likened it to Hearthstone with waifus. It's kind of like an anime Hearthstone, but in my opinion, it's actually kind of what I wanted Hearthstone to be. Now, coming from, the World of Warcraft universe and bringing over some of those mechanics to Hearthstone, that made a lot of sense, especially with the different classes. But they never brought over the unique resource system that we have inside of World of Warcraft. Yet, we get that in Shadowverse. A Hearthstone-like game is actually more mechanically similar to a World of Warcraft card game than, well, Hearthstone is. Yeah, they also have this evolution system, which is pretty cool, allows for some pretty big combos. But yeah, on top of all that and all the intricacies of the cards, there's also the separation between PvP and a very, I think, detailed story mode that you can play through. Again, with waifus. I think it looks gorgeous. So this game might be an underdog, but it's one of the best looking CCG I've seen. And that's even competing with straight up AAA companies. Now coming in at number 6, we have Chronicles: RuneScape Legends. This game completely blew me away, and it leaves me extremely excited for next year. And I know there are some games coming out that are really, really unique and take more tabletop inspiration than just from other usual CCG. And yeah, so basically Chronicle plays like a board game where you're not directly head-to-head with your opponent. It's more like you're fighting your own cards because you build your own deck and you fight your own monsters. And yeah, there are effects and spells and attacks that you can do to kind of dissuade your opponent from doing certain actions or maybe directly affect them and damage them, true, but for the most part, it's like you play parallel to each other, and then every so often you come back into direct conflict with the opponent. It's really hard and weird to describe unless you've played like other board games or something, and it even is styled like that graphically. So if I had to like give an award for like the most unique CCG, absolutely that would be Chronicle RuneScape Legends. Also, I just want to leave off by saying I think RuneScape has some of the best quests and characters in any MMO, period, and it's really cool to kind of get an extension of that with the card game. You know, a little bit of extra flavor. Completely appreciate it. Halfway on the list, let's talk about Faeria. Now, Faeria's one main gimmick is that it's a tactical CCG with a board, okay? So it's usual deck building, monsters, it costs different, resources, they have different types of attacks. You got your flying monsters, you've got your swimming monsters, you got your monsters that spawn on certain different types of lands. We've seen similar games like that, right? Okay, well, take all those gimmicks, add them together, and then, literalize them. They kind of essentially took the concept of Magic the Gathering and then made the lands literal, so you build the board as you play it. To me, it's charming. I love its aesthetic, and I love the different kinds of decks that I can build in this game. There are certain combos and certain things and tactics that you can do in this game that you can't do in other card games, and even other tactical card games. So for that unique experience, it's made the list. Number 4 on the list is Duelist. Now, this is a game that has been championing its own unique genre for basically since its inception. It has had such a profound effect on me personally that it basically got me back into CCG as an entire whole, okay? So Duelist is a tactical CCG, and I'm pretty sure it is spearheading the entire genre. I think it might be the most popular one. And it's mainly because I think of its art, and it's just completely solid design. It doesn't do anything too outrageous. Its board isn't as honestly unique as Faeria, but you're seeing now a lot of other games are copying specifically Duelist because of the slight tweaks that it does, and just because of how good it does tactical CCG. Right, a lot of mechanics and things we have kind of seen in Hearthstone, but they translated that into a tactical board game. And of course, you have the unique generals, and they're even adding new generals with new effects, and the game is becoming now a little bit more explosive and unpredictable, and that is awesome. It had such a solid foundation, literally with its tactics board, and now from here, it can really only get bigger. Oh, one thing to mention, this might be the biggest competitive tactical CCG out there, but it actually does have a lot of content in the challenge modes for a new player to go and experience, and I think it's a great way to learn the game as well. Always a sucker for challenge modes. It's kind of like a collection of different puzzles, so if you're a fan of the pixel art, even if you're not in a competitive CCG, I think this game is worth trying. Number 3 is an incredibly brand new game, and honestly, I didn't want to take it seriously, but this game is legitimately very, very good. It's Plants vs. Zombies Heroes, guys. Now, I didn't know what to expect coming into this. I didn't even know what genre it was really going to be. I thought it was going to be kind of like a Clash Royale kind of thing. I don't know, maybe you could kind of consider it that. It's got lanes like a normal Plants vs. Zombies, but it's a collecting card game. Not only that, but this is the only collecting card game that is truly asymmetrical, as in other card games do have other classes classes that you can mix and match, but this is the only card game that actually has true factions. So you do have different heroes that you can use, and that kind of counts as your class, and they have their own unique abilities, just like other games like Hearthstone or Duelist. But in this game, it's a plant faction, which have their own unique set of cards that they could potentially use, plus their hero, and versus the zombie. And you can play as the zombie and the plant. And overall, this game has some really weird mechanics, like there are multiple turns for zombies, but plants only get one turn, and it's great. What? Yeah, don't worry guys, it's actually got a really charming little single player or challenge mode. The polish is absolutely there, and it's got all of the character from the previous games thrown in and then some. And I have to say, if you are a fan of the very original, the very first game, this truly feels like they took that concept and then made it a competitive CCG or made it head-to-head. And as somebody who was a fan of the first game, and as the franchise as a whole and where it's going going places, man. I like what I see in this game. Number 2 is Clash Royale. And I know this game is a little bit polarizing to a lot of people, and it's kind of a controversial item. You know, it's a little bit debatable if it's really a CCG because it's real time, right? It's more like tower defense, offense, competitive, TD, sort of. I don't know, but it also has cards and collecting and unit upgrades and yeah, whatever. Anyways, Clash Royale is kind of like its own thing. Clash Royale is Clash Royale. And because of that, though, it is so original and so unique. I haven't seen anything that really competes with it at all. Really, in the least. Clash Royale is completely special. So the card and deck building aspects is more like hand building, okay? You just have a few little bit of cards, and the rotation of those cards is really all up to you, and it's real time. And not only is it real time placing the cards and the units, but you actually, well, can choose where to place those units. And it kind of feels like they took Clash of Clans with their whole, like, you know, sieging and defense aspects, you know, you're actually building up your town and everything, just made it all about the units, essentially, and then made it head-to-head real time. And I really, really appreciate that. I loved Clash of Clans. I thought it was a really great game. And still to this day, I think it's the best in the genre. And then they translated that gameplay, they distilled it with, you know, CCG mechanics into Clash Royale. Holy hype, dude. It's amazing. And I will leave off by saying, if you haven't played in a while, they have consistently added new cards that can totally change the game. It is so fun to come up with different strategies. I know for a deck building game, the decks aren't that big, but trust me guys, there's a tremendous amount of strategy and tactics in this very unique title. And now number 1, and you knew what it was the whole time, it's gonna be Hearthstone. Yeah, okay, so my personal opinion is I find a lot of things in a lot of different CCG that I very much appreciate outside of Hearthstone, okay? Hearthstone has become a staple, but I will still always, and I think many other people will always return to Hearthstone because it is just super solid and it has more content, more cards, more to do. There's always a reason to come back, and that's why we do. Hearthstone is just simply more bigger, better, more spectacular, more uproarious, and yeah, that kind of, you know, splits the community just a little bit. The RNG, the explosivity of the game, and to an extent the simplicity. But Hearthstone, it's all over the place, but there's just so much stuff to do. From the single player campaignish kind of things that you can purchase and play through that are really, really good, to the genuine mechanics with all the different classes, all the different cards that you can utilize. And in a deck building game, in a deck building genre, I don't know if there's any other game that has the sheer complexity of Hearthstone. Now, whether or not, you know, the number of decks that's competitive is big or larger, small, minute, I don't really know about that. All I know is that jumping into the arena is hella fun. Making different decks to take on the single player, that's hella fun. And going into the PvP, trying to climb the ladder with some weird gimmick decks, that is fun. I think there's something for everyone. And in such a competitive game, I can see why it gets a little bit of flack in the competitive scene, but for 99% of players out there, Hearthstone is freaking awesome. And regardless, whatever people complain about, yeah, it's still the biggest competitive CCG, so, you know, there's that. Sorry friends, that's the end of the list, but there really are a lot of card games coming out real soon here, and some not so soon, but still, there's a lot to be excited for coming up, and there's a lot of games that I didn't actually mention. Maybe they just didn't quite meet the criteria, they didn't quite compete, or maybe they more fit into some other genres. In fact, I already did a top 10 list for tactical CCG, where games, they do have card systems, but they, you know, focus a little bit more on tacticalness. So yeah, don't worry guys, I'm not trying to overlook games, but if I did, leave it in the comments below, and say why you're hyped. Thanks so much for watching, guys. It's been a blast. I hope you have fun, and I'll see you in the next one.